If I go for any meaningful wage raise, and there's not any factors going on, uh, such as the need to use the further crisis to raise prices, which is what corporations do. They'll just blame the lack of supply due to COVID for the excuse of having everything normalized, but they'll act like there's still a shortage going on. And in that way, corporations are price gouging a lot. And even if, people's wages are going up, it's like the cost of living is going up and the wages are not rising enough. So the lack of unionship is hurting the growth in the economy. The lack of real wage increase as productivity increases. So corporate greed is a reason for that. But if you want to spread the growth and spread the prosperity, then you got to cheapen the cost of credit. And, when the Fed increases the interest rates, yeah, they're trying to bring down the economy, but they're making it more expensive to finance a business or a house or a car and all that. So the Fed really has a really big way of influencing how the economy progresses, regardless of who's president. So that's how much the power the Fed has. And we see that Jerome Powell was a venture capitalist. He was appointed by Donald Trump. He has a real a vetted interest to set the pace of the economy so it collapses. So his billionaire friends can buy everything at a pennies of the dollar. The stage, the next housing crisis, and uh, that to me, despite the COVID relief or the infrastructure bill, now I think there's a problem at the border with Joe Biden. Yes, that's a whole completely different issue, but there's a way of thinking that they're not doing much for American citizens compared to people outside the country. Which is true because it's corporate interest is trying to bring in foreign labor in, and they'll say, hey, we need as many kids as possible for America. So there'll never be a labor shortage, which would increase the price that they have to pay for your labor. If there's a shortage of workers, if the birth rate goes down, then they have less workers. It's just supply and demand of wages, and that is what suppresses the economy too. But from a standpoint, I just think that Biden's infrastructure bill, spreading the growth, providing the needed structure for businesses to come in, it's not going to work when corporations are price gouging. It's not going to work when you're not increasing a minimum wage and all of that. They're just corporate Democrats will just block the bill in the Senate to begin with. They're certainly not going to increase minimum wages across the country. Many small businesses already pay more than a higher wage. I think a minimum wage increase would help small business even more, give people more buying power, ability to afford the kind of things that they have over there. Not anyone can be the buy bulk in large volume like Walmart and Amazon and all the money and resources they have. Well, I think they haven't done enough for this economy, but certainly the Republican approach, I think, right now, you want to increase the trade deficit even more by borrowing to finance tax cuts. I mean, both parties won't reduce the military budget or anything. I mean, they certainly won't do that, or the foreign aid or anything like that that's going on right now. But I think there's a very real crisis out there. To repeat 2008, Democrats haven't gone hard enough on the amount of venture capitalist firms buying up the homes, and more homes are for rent, and you're able to buy and own outright. They want to own everything, is what they want to do. I mean, Blackstone and all of them, and the whole lot of them, they're buying up all the homes. There's a lot of things that are broken right now that are going on right now. But certainly, it doesn't matter what the Republicans won't even bother to pay for a infrastructure bill for electric vehicles. Try to get the next economy going, like America has to keep up with the rest of the world's economy. You need the proper infrastructure to move forward in the next century, and that's what needs to happen, regardless of any party and all that. But I mean, they just want to make it worse, and many of it, Biden is so incompetent. I mean, he, I mean, he has no control over the border. He doesn't want to get both sides together to raise the minimum wage. He doesn't want a single payer or anything like that. I mean, the dude is as big of a phony as there is out there. I mean, I certainly would have loved Bernie Sanders, but he then calls Joe Biden his friend. He doesn't want to fight against Hillary, so Bernie's spineless. Always have to get real. That he's more concerned about making friends with the establishment than having a real revolution. I mean, I think Bernie could have done more and had more courage to sell the idea more. Um, Many people think differently about Bernie, but you can't just cave in. You got to be really hard on these people. Doesn't mean that you have to like want to cause a riot or an insurrection or anything. I mean, but you got to hammer the establishment all the way, and you don't do anything. You're just like let democracy play out, whatever. It's like you let the people be the people. So that's good. That Bernie Sanders has but he's completely spineless. He will not do anything about this. I'm afraid there's no progressive voice in government. I hope the people prove me wrong for the future, but money talks, and it'll corrupt progressive politics at any point. Taking all the finance money you can, you're going to be beholden to special interest groups. It's Some groups start out good, and then money's too much. They want to keep their. It's sometimes not about power, but it's about keeping your voice in the government to spread the message, and you just end up taking the money because the system is rigged either way for you to cave in to the corporate interest, which happens to these progressive groups. I think when they first start out with good intentions, campaigning, all that for the real issues that are affecting real America, and Democratic Party went away from this ever since the Buckley versus Boyle decision, where they've made campaign money speech instead of bribery under the old law, which was set by the Supreme Court. So that ruling definitely came sometime after, a long time after the Fed was created, where it was just the volume of unlimited money, the finance, two world wars, and certainly the Russia thing over there. Certainly, they're not doing matters any better. I mean, I think we'll see what kind of leader could have prevented the war and called Putin's bluff. Because don't want to send NATO in. We don't want to rely on our best war technology. Very complicated questions. I mean, I'll be gung and stand up to Putin. I mean, I think uh, I think Kennedy did with you know the Soviet rockets, all that. It's certainly you want to try to avoid a war, but some people you can't avoid a war, like they Neville Chamberlain and Adolf Hitler just caved in, completely trusted him, and they allowed the Germans to take over. But anyway, where are we? This is where we are right now. Is it doesn't matter if good wages or whatnot can't happen. It's corporate greed and the Fed chairman making borrowing money more expensive to finance dreams and entrepreneur opportunities to bring people from poverty and up into the next class. It's like even the system is set up for that to happen sometimes. And I think that's what the Fed are doing is, these small buyers can't afford the high interest like the big corps. I think they know that. And whatever, anytime the Fed is raising the interest rate, it's not lowering down inflation. Well, they keep saying it's lowering down inflation. Well, why do you have to keep on raising it, right? Like, why do you have to keep on raising it if it's really working? Just the Fed is incompetent. It keeps on making it more expensive every time. It's like you're making it worse. You're making it worse. You can get rid of the cheap credit out there, get rid of artificial rate, but just jacking up the rate beyond the market is just going to make things inherently worse. Got to stop the funny money business of crippling our budgets, our yearly fiscal budgets in America. Right? Can't do the whole Donald Trump tax bill thing, whatever. But you couldn't have done the little COVID bailouts to all the billionaires, which were paying all this money they give to them. So the money that we're adding to the money supply, it's going to the top, and they don't spend the money. It doesn't circulate around from a billionaire. They're hoarding it. They're investing in stocks and real estate. All that stuff, it's not going towards we the people. It's not. It's going towards the top. There's no voice out there in the government, I think, so to speak. And same money groups are going to go towards the Republicans and the Democrats. And I just think that Democrats will be happy to take some of their cash too. And we are nothing about the progress of the infrastructure bill or the criminal justice reform, for all to the people of color out there. What happened with George Floyd and during the Black Lives Matter time in 2020, where this became a real issue. I mean, I don't know how much Joe Biden has done about any of that stuff. I mean, he probably hasn't done anything about that. So, but Donald Trump is an insurrectionist. He downplayed a pandemic. He wanted people killed. So he was a racist, a narcissist. I mean, I understand why people hate Trump. I mean, because he divides Americans on Twitter. And he just acts like he's always right. It's so narcissistic. He doesn't show the leadership neither to trust his advisors and his group of people. And no government experience too. I mean, it's made America laughing stock on the global stage. Didn't stay at the bottom of Putin. Didn't have no guts to do that. This is why America used to have military generals as presidents. They understood the danger coming for them. That's what made America strong. Actually, was the fact that we had real veterans. Ulysses Grant and Theodore Roosevelt. And I think FDR served in the Navy, if I'm not mistaken. I could have sworn FDR did serve in the Navy. I don't know. I got to go see if he did. I don't know if FDR did. Is start out in the Navy. He certainly was governor, I know. So let me see. See right here. But I just think that without Donald Trump in this election, because he's an insurrectionist and he's a former charged president and he downplayed the pandemic. I just think that the midterm results show that people have really rejected hard right politics. That to play it pragmatic down the middle with independents, you're going to need DeSantis. You're going to need DeSantis. You got to distance from racism and homophobia. It's called a new school conservative politics. It's about economics, about hard right, Austrian economics, and it's against the industrial complex, and they are against insurrection certainly, and being completely beholden to the Rothschild Bank, N.L. Rothschild and Sons. They financed the money for the Trump Taj Mahal, so Anyone that's with Trump, they're in there. But you know, Trump is not someone that's bringing about chaos and division in America and being beholden to America's enemies like China and Russia and Saudi Arabia. Because Donald Trump gave the Saudis their deal where they can limit the amount of production on the oil right after COVID. And this has had a big impact on OPEC oil prices. Made Saudi Arabia richer. We double the price of oil. That's what Donald Trump did. Reducing the OPEC oil supply is reducing the overall demand, the supply of oil, making the demand for it higher. It's making it more expensive. That's what Donald Trump did, and we haven't had any better negotiable agreement under the leadership of Joe Biden, as far as I am concerned. I say as far as I'm concerned because I don't have all the facts yet about Biden, but I think he's done nothing because I don't hear the media reporting what's happening with the infrastructure. Is it going forward? Is it working? Not addressing what's been done about criminal justice in the national uh, media, CNN and MSN. It's, old recycled news about Trump, basically, just the latest updates on old excited news, which is what CNN and MSN is you already know what's happening with Miller and collusion, and we already know what's happening with Stormy. You know, insurrection is covered too much. Yeah, they had the January hearings. I get it. Everyone was working, whatever, during. We don't really get to hear the hearings. It's probably a bunch of old regurgitated facts, anyways. We know Donald Trump wouldn't get away with it. But I tell you, it's a two-way street of no single payer, no raise to the minimum wage, no attempts to hamper corporate greed, being very tough and against price gouging. Biden administration failed to do that, certainly, but Donald Trump would get rid of all the regulations altogether, which is just worse, but the same voices that we hope are the next great progressive voices, they end up selling out to the big money. So, and in some ways, I think as much as I like Bernie, maybe the worst person, the worst person on that, because it's not taught on Italy again. And Joe Biden's a great friend. I think Bernie wasn't hitting on the issue like he should have in those debates. People like looking for the knockout punch. But it's not like he's trying to be Floyd Mayweather, be very defensive, passive, whatever. I think he is good friends with many in the establishment. That's just how it is with Bernie Sanders. I like to see what's his comments about that, but I think Bernie, uh, at least with them, the message got out. I don't know. Well, it definitely has gotten people out to vote, but have there enough people been to really pay attention to the issues every day, to be as committed 24/7, 365, 12 months in the issue versus during the election cycle? And that's what makes it hard to, make real changes. The media knows that we forget. We're sheep. We only think about it during election year. And this is where people go apathetic about the issues. And the Donald Trump news cycle has done a huge part about that. Has made everyone kind of apathetic. There's no Donald Trump in the news and all of that. We're just like, oh, thank goodness. Oh, as long as your Donald Trump and his bothering mouth divide Americans on Twitter, all that, and disgrace our war veterans and all that. But people, I don't know who elected Joe Biden, but maybe it is the old boomers. Maybe it's we didn't go out to vote. We didn't go out to vote. So is that going to decide 2026? It's going to take a crash for everyone to blame the Democrats on the next crash. I mean, that's probably my theory on the next crash, is that it's going to happen. It's going to be set by the Fed and this in the corporate America, it's the banks and the billionaires that cause the next crash. It will be coming from them, regardless of which political party is around during the time. Just to make that clear, that's why it makes no difference. But they probably do plan on the return of Trump in 2028. They'll choose Ivanka, They'll choose Ivanka. It'll be her Wonder Woman moment, when she takes advantage of the incompetencies of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's inaction in his old, dementic ways. Then that's where Ivanka's going to come in, because it's not going to come from ideas on the right. It's not going from ideas on the left. It's going to come from incompetency of the left, and some of it is by design. I mean, Hillary Clinton, right wing family, voted for Iraq. Like no one really liked Hillary. And Joe Biden, he was the same way. Bernie, he was the opposite, but just didn't show enough courage to the establishment. That's the biggest problem. There's, I don't know who out there is going to be take the courage, like MLK or Mahatma Gandhi out there in a non-violent, peaceful way of just sending the message and continue to reinforce the message. And he certainly didn't do so. Like, he should have been more on the hard ball against Hillary and Joe Biden. But right wing are like kings of doing that. Like they know how to go all aggressive on the opponent. Like they, they treat it like sport, whatever. Like they're just ruthless with that. And it's about money and power. And for some progressives out there, they are about the movement for change. But again, too many are just bought by the money, and which is why the corporate Democrats can, of course, continue to take money. I mean, the corporate Democrats deserve to lose, I think, but much of what's happening is due to corporate greed in the Fed, and that's who's in bed with Republicans. I mean, they'll do nothing about it. Joe Biden wants the crash to happen. I think if he doesn't strip Jerome Powell of his power. I mean, very incompetent, demented, probably a useful puppet to the GOP establishment. Honestly, if he is demented, he'd be a useful puppet to the Republican establishment to give the corporate donors who donate to both sides the ability to get Donald Trump back in power. That's Republicans wanted Biden to run for president. Like they said, let's change our party registration to Republican and vote for Joe Biden and stop Bernie Sanders. Like they wanted Joe Biden. They knew they were going to beat Bernie Sanders, like up to a real vote. They knew. I'm just saying that should happen with that. But they're doing nothing. I don't know what Joe Biden's plans are to address this. I don't know what Kamala Harris's plans are to address this. Babe, Sinema, well, you had the power to get Sinema to vote yes for raising minimum wage. She was bought out by many corporate interest groups out there. Some of them are probably venture capitalist groups. Just saying, with Kirsten, who's suddenly now independent, whatever. She's not going to associate with the Democratic Party anymore. And then you have, West Virginia Democrat, going to be pretty conservative. Yeah, he's going to play to the conservative back factions of his base. That's what Joe Manchin did. And, some questions argue that he's not really, leaning to the left, which I think he doesn't really lean to the left, anyways. So nothing gets done, nothing gets past the Senate. There's not enough progressives in the government to, not require Republican votes to pass the bills, whatever. They get the huge majority and I'll vote yes, it's all going to go through. And that's a big issue. But, a few years like this thing, can probably write out to 2025, around that time, you know, it's probably next crash will happen. Like, I don't know how it's going to affect real estate in the Arizona area, but it'll probably happen around that time. Like, so certainly hard to see it ever be coming. I mean, maybe COVID just made a lot worse, sort of say, with all the borrowing. Like, got to take money out of the economy. Now it's going to hurt it. Got to take dollars out of the economy. Like, it hurts it uh, as a whole. It's the money you didn't have, the perception. That's the thing that harms the economy. We don't raise wages out there, and you raise the money, the supply accordingly to the proportional rise in economic growth. You see, the Federal Reserve used to be operated by the U.S. Treasury, uh, owned by the bank. It's not owned by private bankers. They raise the money supply, take it out in proportion to how much the economy rises or falls. They rise the money up and down proportionately to the lost and gained goods and services in aggregate through the economy to meet the demand for the entire economy, to have as much means of exchange of currency to make up for the rise in demand for the overall economy. We've kind of abandoned that principle. We've been taken over by corporate speech. Uh, campaign donations is money is speech, and not bribery according to the law. Ever since 1976, right before Ronald Reagan and his trickle down supply side nonsense came into existence. The economy only rises when you increase demand. Tax breaks doesn't do it alone. They only invest and borrow money from banks as if there's demand. So you rise demand in the economy, right? I mean, by cutting taxes and cutting the services that prevents poverty and has after school programs, whatever that helps kids go to college, all of that, for example, are good things for the economy. Having parks and recreation is good to keep kids active and out of gangs, for example. Having ample law enforcement, fire department, medical department, all of our issues are resolved. We don't have calls go unanswered in the time of public need. Whether if it's a medical emergency or your life or your liberty or your property is on the line, and you got to have enough of these resources go out to all the rest of your community around the world in your country as much as you can be. But here we are. I think I think based on Gen Z's voting trends, I think it'd be good for them to win the 2024 election, even with Kamala Harris, just based on the changing voter demographic to more younger people or more liberal. I think that now, after Bush and COVID and Black Lives Matter, that it's going to be a real thing that's going to change. Is the voters becoming more liberal in America, and the liberals taking over? Like, this will be a more liberal country. Already is more liberal when they're more liberal towards drugs, towards wars, all that. I think the American people have a much better understanding of freedom over fascism, and the spirit of the American people is never gonna go away. They will stand against treason, against imperialism, against bigotry, not against corporate greed yet, not against corporate greed. And that is the fundamental problem that lies as far as what have progressives done for the government. And, you know, ALC has something big to answer for, I think. Why don't they do enough? What will ALC do to increase the enthusiasm around the issues? Is that what she's going to do, or is going to play for Team Biden or Harris and cheer them on? You know, the The mama bear Pelosi may be running circles around the squad. I mean, she's able to hold her power in the House and all that. Certainly, they can only just do what Nancy tells them to do. Basically, that's what makes people all fed up with what's going on with the Dems, and certainly lack of leadership is certainly making things much more complicated. And I just they'll blame the crash on the Democrats if the Democrats win the election, I think. And it'll just happen at that time. I think that's the end game for Jerome Powell is begin this gaze knee and run, have, you know, DeSantis lose the election, and we'll turn people back to Trumpism. I think the corporate elite establishment may want the divisive name of Trump to divide America even further. Oh, they're disciple Donald Trump. Well, if Black is just as bad as Donald, by the way, and all the charity fraud and all the trademark abuses for China, like corporate greed. It's crony capitalism what they are doing, the Donald Trump family. You know, they are the Trumps, you know, Bush and his oil, it's Obama, was corporate lawyer, whatever. It's like, when was the last time a president was real? Like JFK or whatever? But then, was the Illuminati glad if he was Kennedy they won 33? I don't know. Was JFK a part of that or was he different? I don't know. But it should win 1-0. It prevented the need to strip them of printing the money, issued the silver certificates, and the bankers weren't having any of that with FDR. And of course, it will probably is a combination of wanting to get out of Vietnam, all that, and he dies in Texas, and Lyndon Johnson from Texas is president at his home state. Like, I mean, he was murdered. John F. Kennedy was murdered. So, if you're wondering, JFK's murder followed the Reagan era of trickle down cronyism. Then it ventured to militarism, military industrial complexism, only the blacks and people of color, and then as demographics, become more diverse, then that you can't punish these people anymore. It's more of an equal society, and maybe go towards the free weed. So, I think the elite the elite understand their agenda that they play every single time. They make sure that they are in control of the people, and I think they probably knew that you couldn't be all racist and bigoted against which it should never accept racism at all in society. But I'm just telling you how brilliant these billionaire Illuminati families are as they plan out the future, how they see how people react to certain elements and change that we see in society. Becoming a cosmopolitan world is what we are. That's what we are. Becoming a more global world as we speak. And that's where the navigation movements of people happens faster more than any point in human history. Right? The world is more open than ever. And I think the billionaires with their cheap labor, they understand this. They understand. They want the favorite cheap labor. They always do. It's our governing, our antitrust for enforcement has definitely been weak. It definitely has. But how much social justice in Black Lives Matter reform have we had during the Biden administration? I mean, we don't hear it. Like, what is happening? Like, if it was such a great thing that's happened, we would be hearing it left and right, but we're not. So, like, what are they really doing to address police brutality? And white supremacist recruitment in police departments, what are they doing about that? That's a great question. What are they doing about that? I want to know what they're doing about that. Why couldn't they increase minimum wage? Where's the single payer. I mean, many things, you know, being a liberal person that, you're just very disappointed with that's happening and they're not doing anything about it. But then you just can't be happy at the bare minimum. I mean, that's the thing. But then if you vote Republican, it's like there's no other answer out there. There's no other vile alternative. It's just some corporate Democrat and the Republican every time. Bill Clinton, shake hands, baby. George Bush, all that. Bill Clinton was much of a conservative as there was out there. He was all good with NAFTA and the shipping away the jobs to the corporations. I mean, Bill Clinton is basically a Republican to me. He was pretty tough on the people and the border. He's an old Southern guy, of course. The Southerners, they were angry at their traditional Democrat Party because, you know, Democratic Party voted for civil rights. Well, Democratic Party was the party of the old Jim Crow Reformationist era. Democrats from the South, 1800s, all that during the time of slavery. Democrats, they changed. They're for civil rights. The old traditional Southern Democrats got angry. Then they decided that they were going to go to the Republican Party. It's what's called the Nixon Southern Strategy. And it's still here today. The whole Bible Belt, all giving their full and faith to the Republican Party. That is power right there. I mean, how they're able to do it, racism and bigotry, economics, racism and bigotry. They decided to combine all that all together. They wanted to stick with the majority demographic and stick with the Republicans. But at the core of the party is corporatism, is the lack of antitrust enforcement, lack of, minimum wage increase. It's like, and it just comes down to the campaign finance laws of the 1970s. That's really where we're at. I mean, it has been going on for decades, decades, over 40 years. Long time, long time. It's fallen a long, long time ago. And there's no left wing voice that's proven to change the system. And Bernie Sanders has not inspired anyone to do so yet by showing the lack of courage. And do the bare minimum to win the campaign battle, to win the election, and keep your power, whatever. Let's have a good old country club. Like, it's a billionaire country club. Let's favor some corporations that give money to us, and let's continue to abuse the system, not care about the change. That's how the corporate Democrats, they get nothing done. And that's where we get to today. And I think the Federal Reserve is going to cause much of this crash. Not that Democrats doing any help for themselves. I think Biden or Harris would do just enough. It's where's Ivanka, right? Even though like he is corrupt and ignorant and you know bigoted and all that, Donald Trump is still stand up for himself and good charisma. You need a good charisma to be a viable candidate. And does DeSantis have the charisma? And you know that will actually be a thing that hurts the GOP in the next election. Donald Trump is good at charisma. Good, sly narcissist. Looks perfect. He was in control. He was in control of the whole script there. But he's toast with the American people. He sucks. America sucks. We haven't had any good leaders over 50 years, and the same cycle going to continue regardless of who wins this next election and with the next president of the United States, who I think can be a Democrat. And that means that Ivanka is going to run for president. That's where it's going to get very crazy. I think Jerome Powell is going to help Ivanka out a lot. Do raise interest rates, make the economy much worse? It has to be. The other side of that is true. The Fed is manipulating economic growth. Well, they can certainly manipulate the deflation, the discouragement of investing, growth, opportunity. I think that's where much of the damage will be done to the economy. So don't raise the interest rate, just take out the money and the supply. So too bad. Too bad they printed so much money out to give to their buddies, and that's responsible for much of this inflation is given out to their crony billionaire groups. And they sit on the cash, doesn't spread around the economy, go to you, it hurts it. So yeah, these guys have done nothing, and I think it's going to pave the way for Republican leadership, seeing the inaction of the Democrats. So I think they can let it last through another election term, amazingly enough, because I think again the demographics, the more liberal, younger generation. It's last president's election before Trump was Republican. It was George H.W. and Donald Trump was the next U.S. president to lose his reelection. In between then, Bill Clinton got reelected, Obama got reelected. So yeah, to not be reelected in recent times is a Republican phenomenon. That's where we're at right now. I think Democratic Party do just enough, but then they'll continue to be incompetent. They'll continue to be puppets of the rich. That's where the Republican Party gets its rise to power in the future, and that's probably how it's going to turn out. I mean, you heard it all here. Like, what? Don't hear enough how much Biden has been doing for the economy. Not being Trump, but was Biden done enough? It's like there's no viable option to Donald Trump or to DeSantis, and that's where we need more work, as a country. But same two-party system, they'll keep it obviously. Who cares? Put them on the ballot, all that. Get them out to debate. You want to have but to vote for more people, give more voices out there to your political system. Put as many voices as possible to run for the best men out there. It's what any competent political system is, and we limit that in this country. It's a scam. It really is a scam for cronyism and corporatism. I mean, they got to do better with that system, and they won't change it. Certainly, they will not. So, yeah, we'll see how bad the leadership under Biden and Harris is. And people say it's really bad, or not people think it's really bad, or they just don't want to see Donald Trump win. But then we haven't gone through the Republican primaries, but it's going to come down to charisma too. Recent memory of Black Lives Matter, all that, the lack of the action during the pandemic really hurt people down the middle, and that's going to make impact too. But people are going to grow tired. They're going to want change by 2028. That's all I can say about where we're heading with this next election.